What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about the situation that is unfolding publicly between Derrick Jackson and his wife. And I spoke, or at least mentioned, touched on this situation in a previous video, but in this video, I want to dive into it more. And because there are some things that are happening, and there's a lot of stuff kind of unfolding, and that really needs to be addressed. Like, there's some kind of like ha ha he he stuff, but then there's some stuff that's kind of a bit more like not so humorous, and it's a bit disturbing, actually. And also, notice that this is somewhat kind of like big news to an extent, because like a lot of like mainstream outlets, like media outlets, have reported on this story. Like Newsweek reported on this story. The New York Post reported on this story. The BBC News, British Broadcast Company News, reported on this story. I think Entertainment Tonight reported on this story. And I knew that this was like big news amongst like black folk, at least black folk who are active on social media. But I didn't know that this was, like newsworthy to like mainstream news outlets. I didn't know Derrick Jackson was like that popping, not being shady, but I just didn't know he was like on that level. But to an extent, I'm like, well, is he? Well, at this point, he may end up getting to that level, based on this media coverage that he's getting. And if he's able to like spin this around in some way, then perhaps. And, the conspiracy theorist, in myself, maybe is thinking like, is this being picked up by mainstream media outlets to like give a bad look to black men or something? You know, just wondering. Or like a worse look, really. But Derrick Jackson, he probably gonna blow up to the next level if he is able to maneuver this situation correctly. You know, and black women gonna be his main supporters. We know that. No matter if he cheated on his wife a dozen times with different women, for some reason, the mammy pick me mules, they just gonna do what they do. Mammy's gonna mammy, pickings, pickney's gonna pick, mule's gonna mule, you know. But I do want to touch on some stuff though. So let me really get into it though. So his wife, DeNaia, I believe it's pronounced DeNaia. So she is the woman who's married to Derrick Jackson, and she's the woman who was cheated on. She said that she like left like all of last year actually, and packed up all that she could pack in her car, and she left. I'm not sure what exactly prompted her to come back. Toxic Christianity, perhaps? I don't know. And I'm going to kind of touch on that a little bit later too, as well, because I've been seeing that sort of pop up too. But so his wife DeNaia, she ends up making these Twitter posts or social media posts where she mentions the skin tone of some of the women who happen to have played a part in Derrick Jackson committing adultery. And the skin tone that she mentioned were dark-skinned women. Oddly enough, those were the women who were being called out, even though there were other skin tones in the mix as well, from what I heard, at least from what people are saying that Tasha K reported in her receipts. And I do find it a bit odd that she wanted to mention that. And perhaps part of the reason that she mentioned it is because maybe, I don't know, some people are saying that, maybe she kind of feels a bit like inferior to the darker skinned women. And that could be a possibility. And I feel like she may have seen some video footage of Derrick Jackson and these darker skinned women or darker skinned woman um, in the motion, if you know what I mean, in the act. And I know that may be a bit, you know, not nice to see, since, that's her husband, the father of her kids, and I'm sure that she has some sort of feelings for her, so for him, so I can understand her feeling some type of way about that. But, perhaps maybe she didn't think that Derrick Jackson was into darker skinned women for some reason. I do find that a bit weird that, some like non-dark skinned women or whatever you want to call them do seem a bit surprised if their like dark skinned significant other shows interest in a dark skinned woman. It's like, well, he's dark skinned and the woman's dark skinned. Why wouldn't he like a woman who's dark skinned? Unless maybe he told her that the women that he prefers or likes are not dark skinned women. That could be a possibility. Maybe she just assumed it. Sometimes that can happen. Folks can just make assumptions based on maybe a person's dating history, or maybe just making assumptions based on, oh, well, who would like that? I mean, that could come from like a colorist place. Hopefully that wasn't the case, though. But it seemed like it may have been maybe somewhat of a surprise to her. And it wound up making her feel a bit insecure, And, she may be feeling insecure because she feels like this maybe is the type of woman that Derrick really likes, And she's like, well, I don't look like that, And it's like, Derrick wants some chocolate to go with his chocolate. And, that's what's up. But she's like, I don't got chocolate to offer Derrick. Even though she's kind of like a brown skin tone. But I guess maybe she's a bit more like peanut butter. I think she can offer him peanut butter. Because she's kind of like one of those people, it's depending on the light. It's like the lighting can make her look a little darker, a little lighter. And that happens to like a lot of people. But her is kind of like, she's in that peanut butter range, I'll say. And she may be feeling some type of a way because, they can't come together and make like, a double chocolate chip Oreo. And that's okay. That's cool. You don't have to come together and make a double chocolate chip Oreo, I mean, the mixed Oreos are good too. But maybe that maybe triggered some sort of an insecurity in her. Maybe feeling like she can't really offer Derrick what he really wants, and to some extent, Although, he was, rumored to have cheated with the, I guess, lighter skinned women too, But that didn't maybe trigger her for some reason. Maybe she felt like, well, maybe I can hang, perhaps. But this sort of mention of colorism, if you want to call it that, in this situation with colorism that she's going through, she mentioned that it led her to kind of like hating her dark-skinned daughter. And that's when it's just like, whoa, it's just taken to a whole nother level now. Because a lot of people just want to say, oh, colorism is just, a matter of who dates who. and that's it. And that's a part of it, but colorism is just more than just who dates who. And I think people know that, but people don't want to admit that. People want to just put it as just, oh, it's just, who dates who, and just make it a bit more superficial. So it's easier to dismiss it, right? And also, where is the outrage? If this was a darker skinned mom saying this about her light skinned mixed biracial daughter, there would be people outraged about a comment like that and wanting to drag her and bring her to task or take her to task. So where is the outrage? And as well, where are the darker skinned fathers at to advocate for their darker skinned daughters? I don't hardly ever see that. Not saying that it does not exist, but I just never see that for some reason, right? And also, as quiet as it's kept, low key, that's like a roundabout insult to darker skinned men who have children with, say, women who are lighter skinned, and the children, particularly the daughters, come out with the dad's skin tone and maybe sometimes his facial features and whatnot. That is an insult to him. But again, some of these dudes, enough of them, the self-esteem is so low, and the colorism, they just so, lost in the colorism sauce that it's just whatever, They're just happy to have something that's has some adjacency to non-blackness, I'm not saying that this is Derrick's case, but I'm just speaking generally. So I'll say that I also noticed that in the video, she looks, sad. She looks depressed. Like, maybe she's suffering from some sort of mental health issues. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, so I don't know. Perhaps she does not have a good support system outside of her husband. And I think in so many words, she did say that in her post, because she said something to the effect of like, oh, I keep my family and my friends at a distance. So I feel like she may not have like a good, strong support system to fall back on and to lean on during a tough time like this. And also, jumping back to that dark-skinned daughter thing right quick. The dark-skinned daughter maybe could remind her of the women Derrick cheated on her with. Maybe the dark-skinned daughter reminds him or her of Derrick. But back to this topic, though. So I'll say that change, especially sudden change, can be stressful, And on some level, I think she may feel like she can't do any better than Derrick Jackson. And hey, Derrick Jackson, he got a lot going for him, and she may feel like she can't really, like, this is as good as it's going to get for her, and she can't really do any better, right? And I'm going to say that there could be some truth in that, honestly, at least where she's at now. Folks can change, folks can level up, folks can glow up. That seems to be the new phrase now. It can happen, all right? But I'm saying at this level, at this point now, nah, probably not. Especially if you coming on camera with bonnets and camouflage wear for some reason, like she's going to war, going to war with her bonnet on. But let me get back to this a bit more serious though. And some people, I know when like Sweetie and Quavo broke up, some dude brought up an analogy involving Batman and Robin and saying like basically, don't try to do what Sweetie do. You already got Batman and you're going to end up with Robin, right? And I'll say that I think like following this analogy here with Batman and Robin, I think that if Batman is no good, and if he's committing adultery, yeah, and infidelity, cheating, whatever you want to call it, then I think that that should be a deal breaker and you should leave. But I know that for some women, it's not a complete deal breaker. And also, some of the women do like the look of being with Batman versus Robin, you know. Um, and that's something you have to realize or be aware of too, you know. And then in some cases, maybe, I think maybe in some cases, you know, maybe Robin isn't ish either. Maybe, you know. But if Robin seemingly is the good dude and willing to, is, you know, offering everything you want and need versus Batman, you know, for women, who are they going to pick? I feel like a lot of women will probably end up picking Batman. Some women will end up picking Robin, but I feel like a lot probably will end up picking Batman, you know, just because they feel like it's a better look, you know, and folks are really concerned about how the relationship looks, you know. But, you know, you have to do what works for you, I guess. And if that works for you, then who am I to, you know, say something about it? And, you know, some people are saying that, you know, maybe she should leave. I think she did leave, though. But maybe she needs some time to process everything before making a move, although she did file for divorce, you know? So I'm like, how are you kind of like in this situation now with this dude on camera, though? It's weird. I just hope this situation doesn't get violent, you know, that no one ends up on the, you know, 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock news because of this situation. And also to the people out there, especially the women out there, you know, don't be so quick to judge, you know, because you don't really know all the details. And also, you have to remember, like, this is has become public, and I'm pretty sure it's already tough enough for her to deal with this in private. But when it becomes public, it just exacerbates the situation. And now everybody has an opinion about it, and you're just like, your personal life has become just like, you know, some sort of a like news story for public consumption. You know, like your personal life is now public knowledge, especially in like an embarrassing part of your personal life, part, a personal part of your life that you may not want people to really know about. You know, just think about something in your life. Would you want your like embarrassing moments or your low moments in life to be publicized in the media, on mainstream news outlets, people making um, commentary about them? No, probably not. And also, people mention Christianity and toxic Christianity, and you know, I do find this a bit weird. Because it's always like, not always, but sometimes like, oh, you know, using the Christianity thing as a crutch to stay in a bad relationship or a bad marriage or a bad situation, you know. And you know, his wife DeNaia is using it, and Derrick Jackson is also kind of like using Christianity in a way too. You know, you know, they want to bring in the Lord into their situation now, you know, but you wasn't thinking about the Lord when you were engaging in degeneracy and breaking marriage vows. So it's like, why bring in the Lord now, right? But you know, maybe they just want to bring in the Lord so they feel like they can salvage their marriage in some sort of a way, perhaps. But you know, it is interesting to think like, is do you think about the Lord outside of this? Because folks, they come through and do the performance, the Christian performance, and say, Lord, deliver me, and all this good stuff. And, I'm definitely not being blasphemous towards the Lord, but these people, though, I'm just like, well, what's your relationship outside of the Lord? Well, outside of the situation with the Lord, you know, just wondering. But ultimately, that's between them and God, right? And I'm quite sure that God is able to handle that. Um, but yeah, it does kind of like irk me a little bit, though, right? Just to hear like Christianity being pulled into like this degeneracy. It's like, nah, leave Christianity and the Lord out of this. So also, what's more important to talk about, and we can kind of like focus on Derrick Jackson for a minute, because Derrick Jackson, he was supposed to be one of the good guys, because that's how he portrayed himself, and he was calling out dudes and holding dudes accountable for being no good boyfriends, baby daddies, husbands, etc. You know, but come to find out, he's just one of those dudes. Right? Ain't that something? He the same dude he be complaining about and calling out and criticizing. Boy, I tell you. And is Derrick Jackson considered to be a Pookie and Ray Ray, an educated lame, somewhere in the middle? Where does Derrick Jackson fall in that? Because I don't really think he's a Pookie and a Ray Ray, you know. And I just bring that up because, sometimes it'd be like, oh, some black men will say to black women, oh, if you just leave the Pookie and Ray Rays alone, everything would be okay. And that's not always the case, you know? That's not always the case. You know? And also, it's like, well, Pookie and Ray Rays are black men also. And just because you're a Pookie and Ray Ray doesn't mean that you are just destined to be a cheater or not to take care of the children that you father. But that is an assumption, though. Why do people make that assumption? Why? And I think that low-key may come from a place of classism within the black community, our socials, like social class, Uh, but yeah, Derrick Jackson, he's essentially a wolf in sheep's clothing because he really portrayed himself to be quite the good guy, right? Quite the chocolate knight in shining armor. But this is just a lesson. Everything that's dark ain't chocolate. All right. Sometimes you got to get up close on that. It looks like chocolate from a distance, but when you get up close to it and really start to examine, you get a whiff of that smell. And it's like, no, that's not chocolate. That's like a big steaming pile of right. And don't y'all be getting sensitive in the comment section. This is metaphoric, so don't want nobody in the comment section saying that I'm being colorist and whatnot. Even though now y'all know what colorism is now, right? Y'all got PhDs in colorism now, right? But then when the next situation comes around, it's like all of a sudden y'all don't know nothing. But folks want to roast his wife for being on a camera with a bonnet and whatnot and looking a bit frumpy. And, I kind of wish she would have kind of like put herself a bit more together before she got on the camera. But she's probably, I guess, maybe depressed or something and maybe just ain't feeling it. Perhaps. But, Derrick Jackson, ashy on camera. No one ain't mentioned, ashy Derrick Jackson on camera for some reason. And also, if DeNaia cheated the way that Derrick cheated, or just cheated, do you think that Derrick would be in a video with her on camera, he would be like a super simp of the century. But also I have another, what if, scenario too. What if Derrick Jackson cheated on his wife with like white women or Caucasian women? Do you think that, the mammies, the pick-me's, the meals, you think they'll be reacting the same? Do you think they would be as lenient? Maybe. But then again, maybe not. I kind of wish that maybe that would have happened low-key. I think that'd be more able to wake up the mammy, the pick-me, the mules, who gonna go right back to supporting him, right? So they can pretend like they got a husband. They can pretend like they got a baby daddy. They can pretend like they got a man that liked them because they buying his books and donating to his Patreons and stuff like that. Yeah. So do you guys think that Derrick Jackson is a predator or a narcissist? Because I've been seeing that being thrown around too, that, Derrick Jackson like preyed on his wife to an extent and maybe is like emotionally or verbally abusive to her, and that Derrick Jackson is a narcissist. Derrick Jackson, he did do a reaction video to his video that he did with his wife. And people really found that to be very cringe-worthy. And he later deleted that video. But yeah, he did a reaction video to like himself, And folks are like, that's a narcissist. He's narcissistic, And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist either. So I don't know. And I'm not super familiar with the term narcissist and narcissism. But, what I can do is look up the definition right quick of what a narcissist is and maybe see if we can apply it or not apply it to Derrick Jackson. So give me one moment and I'll look up the definition of narcissist. So I'm getting narcissistic personality disorder. EPD, a disorder in which a person has an inflated sense of self-importance. Maybe. Narcissistic personality disorder is found more commonly in men. The cause is unknown, but likely involves a combination of genetic and environmental factors. They say that this is a rare disorder, fewer than 200,000 U.S. cases per year. Requires a medical diagnosis, so if y'all ain't no doctors or no psychiatrists or psychologists or whatever, I'm just wondering about y'all diagnoses, right? Symptoms include an excessive need for admiration, disregard for others' feelings, an inability to handle any criticism, and a sense of entitlement. I think Derrick Jackson has handled criticism, does he feel a need for admiration? I don't know. Does he feel a sense of entitlement? Probably. He probably does feel entitled to his wife and to his fan base, probably. Disregard for others' feelings, well, the cheating, right? Treatments. Supportive care, monitoring. This disorder needs to be diagnosed by a professional. Treatment involves talk therapy, therapies, support groups, counseling, psychology, family therapy, and group psychotherapy. So yeah, there we got it. So I'm almost done here, but do you guys think this is going to end up being like promo for like, the next phase of Derrick Jackson and DeNaia's career, or whatnot? Probably. They're going to spin it around and turn this into some sort of a new relationship type of thing. Since he can't, I don't know if Derrick Jackson can really go back to the old way he used to do things, because I feel like that bridge is probably burnt at this point. So he can't go back. So he has to go forward to a new location. Where would that take him? Where would that next bridge he crossed take him to in terms of his, career? Because I know he be getting some good checks from what I heard. He be getting some good checks out here. So I know he don't want that to end. When you be getting a good amount of money in it and you become used to it, you don't want that to end, right? But, Derrick Jackson was exposed, right? Will K-Sam be exposed for something? The truth gonna come out. The truth gonna come out. Folks be liking K-Sam up in the building, and K-Sam, he, I ain't gonna even really go hard on K-Sam because folks supporting K-Sam. K-Sam, he done hustled. I can't say I completely respect the hustle, but I can respect the spirit of the hustle, right? Just because I feel like the hustle was built on the backs of criticism of black women primarily. I feel like that's where the bulk of it comes from. But, I just wanted to bring that up because, people were making comparisons between DJ and K-Sam and saying, like, basically they're kind of like two sides of the same coin. And to an extent, that's probably true, where Derrick Jackson, he kind of came at it from like, oh, black women, oh, you queens, you deserve so much more and better, let me help you. And then like K-Sam, he's like, well, y'all black women, y'all need to get it together. Y'all black women got issues that you need to work on, right? And like the black women gravitated towards both of those dudes, though. But I'll bring this video to a close. I've been kind of like all over the place in this video, but I just wanted to come through and just share my thoughts about that and what he's, see what you guys think. So let me know what you think about all this in the comment section. To the next video, adios and goodbye for now.